Florida's Blue Spring, which is located in Volusia County, is noteworthy and prominent. This spring is categorized as a first magnitude spring, meaning it releases a minimum of 100 cubic feet of water per second. The term first magnitude refers to the largest springs, and there are a total of 27 of these in Florida. Blue Spring ranks as the 17th largest in terms of water release among these 27 springs. Blue Spring State Park is a top spring in Florida and the largest on the St. Johns River. The first magnitude spring releases water close to a depth of about 240 feet and has dimensions of about 360 by 160 feet, which is equivalent to the size of a soccer field. It's a natural sanctuary for the endangered West Indian manatees during the winter. Aside from manatees, Blue Spring also hosts a diverse range of freshwater and saltwater fish. The spring opening at Blue Spring is approximately 20 feet deep from the land surface and is connected to a 125-foot cave system. This cave is a popular destination for cave divers. The spring is divided into 3 areas. One area is accessible to all visitors, while another is strictly off-limits to protect the manatee sanctuary. The third area, designated as the second manatee refuge, is open to visitors who want to observe the manatees. Additionally, the Amerindian Temple mound is located at Blue Spring, where Native Americans, also known as Amerindians, lived before the Europeans arrived in North and South America. Julian, a resident of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, has been passionate about diving since he was a teenager. His love for the underwater world has taken him to different cave systems across Florida, Mexico, and South America. Apart from his interest in diving, Julian is also an avid climber. He finds solace and thrill in the breathtaking views from the top of the mountains. His adventures in climbing have taken him to various parts of the world, exploring the beauty of nature and testing his limits. Julian is known to be a dedicated and serious individual who puts his heart and soul into everything he does. His focus is to build a career in diving, and he aspires to become a diving instructor after completing his training and fulfilling all the requirements. Julian and his friend Todd Williams, who is also a qualified diver, have always been fascinated by the underwater world. They had planned to explore the cave system at Blue Spring in the past, but unfavorable weather conditions forced them to abandon their plans. However, they were determined to return to the site someday and complete their dive. 2 years later, Julian and Todd found themselves in the vicinity of Blue Spring, with an opportunity to finally explore the cave system they had longed to see. Despite their diving experience, they knew that the Volusia cave system was unfamiliar territory, so they decided to hire a dive guide named Marcus. Marcus had extensive knowledge of the Volusia cave system, and he shared valuable insights with Julian and Todd before the dive. He pointed out potential hazards and helped them navigate through the cave system safely. The morning of the dive at Blue Spring had finally arrived, and Julian, Todd, and Marcus were ready to explore the cave system. They got suited up and began their preparations for the dive. Before descending, they conducted buoyancy checks at a depth of 23 feet to ensure they were all comfortable and ready for the dive. Although Todd was showing signs of nervousness, they both exchanged OK signals with Marcus, indicating that they were ready to proceed with the dive. They began their descent into the cave system. As they ventured further into the cave, Todd began to feel uneasy and signaled to Julian and Marcus that he wanted to end the dive and wait for them on the surface. Julian and Marcus, who were determined to continue the dive, reassured Todd that they would be back soon and that he should wait for them at the surface. With Todd safely on the surface, Julian and Marcus continued the dive, eager to explore more of the cave system. They swam through the narrow passages, marveling at the stunning rock formations and the fascinating marine life that surrounded them. After a while, they decided it was time to start their ascent to the surface. As Julian and Marcus made their way back after a successful exploration of the cave system, Julian began to feel increasingly nervous. He started to panic and lose focus, which was immediately noticeable to Marcus. who was following closely behind. Concerned about Julian's condition, Marcus asked if he needed help, but Julian insisted that he could manage on his own. However, Marcus continued to keep a close eye on him, knowing that panic can quickly escalate in a diving situation. Suddenly, Marcus noticed that Julian was dumping gas from his buoyancy control device, and then he started to descend again. Marcus quickly swam over to Julian to assess the situation and noticed that he was frantically signaling to go up in a hurry. Marcus realized that Julian was in a state of panic and needed to be calmed down to allow for a controlled ascent. He tried to communicate with Julian, urging him to take deep breaths and relax to allow a controlled ascent. As they began their ascent, Julian's behavior became increasingly erratic. He was alternately swinging his arm and gripping Marcus's arms, causing him to lose his regulator twice. Marcus, an experienced diver, quickly went behind Julian and held on to his cylinder handle as he swam him toward the guideline. Once they were properly aligned, Marcus changed his position to face Julian, and they started to ascend together. Julian continued to grip Marcus tightly by both his upper arms, which left noticeable indentations and slight bruising on Marcus's skin after he removed his wetsuit. Despite the challenging circumstances, Marcus remained calm and collected, using Julian's BCD to control their ascent while he dumped his own BCD. After ascending 22 feet, Julian lost his regulator once again, and Marcus quickly replaced it in his mouth. Marcus noticed that Julian's breathing had become rapid and shallow. At 8 feet, Marcus noticed that Julian was foaming at the mouth and that the foam was coming out through his regulator. Julian appeared to be unconscious, but he was still exhaling, and white foam was filling his mask. Marcus knew that Julian was in serious trouble and needed immediate help. The pair quickly surfaced, and Marcus immediately released Julian's weight belt, letting it drop to the seabed. Marcus then removed his own BCD and Julian's BCD to help Julian get more air. He checked Julian's airway and saw that he was still exhaling foam. Marcus knew that time was of the essence and that Julian needed urgent medical attention. Marcus immediately called out to Todd for help, who was nearby, and they both rushed over to Julian. Upon reaching the scene, Todd could see the situation of his friend, and the seriousness of the situation caused him to panic. However, he quickly gained his composure, and together with Marcus, they worked to pull Julian out of the water. Marcus placed Julian in Todd's care, who immediately started assessing his condition. Marcus turned his attention to their equipment, which they had to leave behind in the water. They had to retrieve their buoyancy control devices and other gear to ensure that it was not lost in the water. With Todd watching over Julian, Marcus recovered their equipment and made sure that it was secured. Afterward, he returned to Julian, who was still unconscious and exhibiting concerning symptoms. Julian was exhaling foam and vomit, which made it difficult to determine the extent of his injuries. Todd was visibly devastated to see his friend in that helpless position. Marcus immediately called the dive center to alert the emergency services of the life-threatening situation. The staff at the dive center immediately alerted the emergency services, who quickly arrived on the scene. An ambulance was dispatched, and the paramedics took over Julian's care. Marcus and Todd watched as the ambulance rushed Julian to the nearest hospital. Once they arrived at the hospital, Julian was quickly taken into the emergency room. The doctors and nurses worked to save his life, but unfortunately, despite their best efforts, they were unable to revive him. The news was devastating for everyone, especially Marcus and Todd, who had been with Julian during his final moments. The reason for Julian's panic during the dive will forever remain a mystery. However, the events that followed serve as a caution for all divers. Panic is a serious threat to divers, and it can strike at any time, even for experienced divers. All divers need to recognize the signs of panic and take steps to prevent it from happening. Rapid, shallow breathing can lead to hypoxia, which is a condition that occurs when the body is deprived of oxygen. This can cause a buildup of carbon dioxide in the body, which is deadly. The diver can start acting irrationally, breathing faster, and even removing the regulator, which is a critical piece of equipment that allows divers to breathe underwater. In some cases, panic can lead to a diver rushing to the surface. This can be incredibly dangerous, as the rapid ascent can cause the diver to experience decompression sickness, which is also dangerous. Panic responses can also cause a diver to pass out, which can be deadly if they are underwater at the time. For divers with weak hearts, panic can even cause a heart attack. Recognizing the signs of panic is critical for all divers. These signs can include rapid breathing, shaking, sweating, and an elevated heart rate. If a diver experiences these symptoms, it is essential to take action immediately. This may involve taking slow, deep breaths, focusing on a fixed point, and calming oneself down. In extreme cases, it may be necessary to surface slowly and safely end the dive. We would like to thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed watching, take a dive on the like and subscribe buttons and hit the bell icon so you get notified when we come back with another exciting cave diving story.